Welcome back. Joining me now is New South Wales Independent MP Tania Mihailuk and former New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott. Hi to both of you. Thanks so much for joining me as always. I want to start with your reactions to that horrific terror attack on a synagogue in Manchester. What warning do you think, Tania, does it serve for Australia?
Well, Australia needs to make sure that we don't become lax in the way that we monitor these organisations and these people. My concern for what's happened in the UK is that political cowardice has led to complacency. Too much PC concerns there have led to the UK government not being on top of the various different organisations they need to monitor and the people they need to monitor. And Australia needs to learn that too. You can't become laxed and relaxed about potential acts of terror. You absolutely can't be. You've got to use your telecommunications powers, you've got to use your digital electronic powers, and you've got to monitor people and you've got to monitor organisations. You can't tell me that these people don't pre-plan these attacks. They do. And somebody knows about these types of attacks and they're not informing the police like they should be. And Australia needs to absolutely be alert and watch this space.
Look, I agree, but my concern, David, is, we have seen a lot of anti-Semitism. It's been festering now for 2 years. Don't say that this can't happen here. I mean, it just took one person over there, one person to just go for it and take matters into their own hands.
And that's right. And Tania's right. I mean, this is proof positive that we cannot downgrade our security ratings. We cannot just become intolerant because it's politically incorrect to say that we have a higher level of security rating here or in the United Kingdom. I think the intelligence agencies need to come solid, need to come out and say, if this bloke was on their radar. Because if he wasn't on their radar, well, then the community needs to know that we really do have to be prepared for radicalisation from nowhere. And if this guy wasn't on their radar, it's proof, again, that you can be radicalised overnight, normally on the internet, and they'll do a job.
Look, I completely agree with you. And look, you obviously have faith in our own counter-terrorism operations. I'm sure that they're on top of it, but it is a worry. Now, look, the New South Wales Police will lodge a Supreme Court bid to block a pro-Palestine protest at the Sydney Opera House on October 12 if the protesters refuse to accept an alternate route.
There's heightened public emotions around this, and we understand it. We're not anti-protest. We facilitate thousands of protests, and in fact, with this particular group, we've been facilitating protests and public assemblies for the last 2 years. So it's not a matter of us not wanting them to have a public assembly. It's not even a matter about it being at the Opera House itself. It's about public safety.
They'll make the decision based on public safety grounds. I'm not going to offer a public commentary before they've spoken, if for no other reason that I don't want to draw attention to the organisers that seem to thrive on the notoriety of it all.
Look, at what point do we say enough is enough, OK? Tania, yes, we live in a democratic country. Yes, of course, that means we have a right to protest. But there is deep-seated divisions at these protests that we're seeing week in, week out, and we know exactly what happened last time at the Sydney Opera House a few days after October 7.
Oh, look, and can I just firstly start, well done to Peter McKenna. That was a very good press conference that he undertook today. Made it very clear that the police have real concerns about the public safety and the amenity of Opera House being used as a protest site. The common sense should prevail. The group now know that there is an alternative. The police have offered them an alternative. If they don't accept the alternative route, then it tells you that there's a reckless indifference about Australian institutions, there's a reckless indifference about Australian democracy and a reckless indifference about Australian way of life, because that's what this group's about. This is a group that's based on anarchy. It's about protest for protest's sake. And I think Australians have had enough. The police are doing everything they can. In fairness, so is the government, I think. I think Chris Minns is, deeply opposed to it.
I have to say, he's been very good on this matter from the beginning.
He has been. His caucus isn't. He's got a large proportion of his caucus who actually attended the Harbour Bridge protest last time. But nevertheless, he himself has been good on this issue, as have the police. There is an alternative route available. What are the protesters going to do? And if they don't take that up, then clear as day, Australians need to wake up. This isn't about the issue at hand. It's about just simply devaluing Australia's way of life.
I mean, and that is loud and clear that our values have been eroded particularly since October 7, and goes without saying. Now, you're a former minister, of course, here in New South Wales. There are now suggestions that perhaps laws need to be changed, David, that stop protesters from using iconic landmarks like the Sydney Opera House for their protests. Do you agree with that? Is that a solution?
I think we have to, because the court has clearly said that they're contemptuous of the government and the police will. And despite the fact the police have a very, very solid safety message, that is that they underestimated the numbers on the Harbour Bridge a couple of months ago, and now they need even more support. And the Premier probably, my only criticism of the Premier is he should have called out today that there will be a change in the Act that will give the police the power to say it's not going to happen. Because at the end of the day, it is a safety issue. However, having said all of that, there's a moral dilemma here as well. I mean, if I was a Palestinian or a pro-Palestinian protester, I'd be keeping the anniversary of this October 7 a very low-key event.
Oh, well, you'd think so.
They didn't last time.
The fact that they think that this is something worth celebrating and waving a flag over is just sickening.
Yeah.
So I think there's a moral message to be sent out from government as well.
No, look, I'm with you all the way. And I just want to alert our viewers that there will be a special documentary investigating the rise of anti-Semitism here on Sky News Australia on Wednesday, October 8 at 7:30 p.m, so you won't want to miss that one. Now, earlier I spoke about this. In the last hour, we just found out that 6 people, including ISIS brides, have smuggled themselves out of Syria and returned to Australia. The Herald Sun is reporting Labor is aware of the group, including some of the women's children, after being processed by Lebanese agencies and comprehensive security checks and DNA testing by Australian agencies. They were issued passports. David, you were the state's first counter-terrorism minister. Does this pass the pub test? How does this happen? Firstly, that they come here in secret, we know nothing about them. Apparently they've had security checks. Does that stack up? Well,
I'd like to see the security checks, because at the end of the day, when I was the Minister for Counter-Terrorism, the major concern was that they had not been de-radicalised when they returned to Australia. And what we've seen in Manchester is somebody who came out from nowhere to create an horrific act, to undertake a horrific act. And there's no guarantee that somebody that's come from the type of background that they've lived in Syria, that they're not sleepers, for want of a better word. And the concern, of course, is that they will go and live amongst the very communities that they've been at war with in the Middle East. And I think this really should be a line in the sand for the Australian intelligence agencies and law enforcement agencies. They really do need to say to government, we need the political air cover to change the rules to prevent this from occurring. Oh, look, absolutely.
If the government's willing for the change, David, which I don't think it is. I think the government's welcoming these women back. That's the problem. I mean, these women willingly became ISIS brides. I just cannot believe that there's even a thought bubble out there that we would bring them back into Australia. They are indoctrinated. They are completely, in my view, you can't save these people. And the idea that they're coming back into Australia, why? Because we're going to foot the tax bill, aren't we? We're going to pay for their health needs, their education needs, their housing needs. This is absurd. And David's right, the safety issue as well. You've got the Australian, Assyrian Christian community who have escaped from Syria to get away from ISIS, who will now be forced to live amongst these people. Well, you know, outrageous.
They've gone over there on this jihadi romance, and you know what? We're just supposed to just welcome them back with open arms. You know, give me a break, seriously. Tania Mihailuk, David Elliott, we've got to leave it there. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. Really appreciate it.